So what do you do with wrong turns in life? We all make them all the time. In fact, wrong turns are just a part of living. I don't always know how to deal with it, but we'll talk it out together. It's time for Grace Points. So I have this terrible habit of driving by memory, right? I drive based on my familiarity with the environment. I don't always memorize street names. I'm just driving because I know where I am. In fact, there have probably been times in my life where I could tell you the street I lived on, but I couldn't tell you all the streets leading up to the street that I lived on. I just knew landmarks, right? I knew take a left at the tree that's tilted to the right a little bit next to the fire hydrant with the Mickey Mouse face painted on it and the marshmallows on the side. Where did we go wrong there? How did we get to Mickey Mouse and marshmallows? Where do I live? The Magic Kingdom? I don't know. Anyway, there have been times where I just didn't pay attention to street names. I drove based on memory. And when there was a change in the environment, if something changed around me, it would give me that moment where I felt like, uh-oh, something doesn't look right. Something's not right with where I am. Even if I was headed the right direction, driving based on memory isn't always the best way to do it. You have to drive based on directions, based on the cognitive knowledge of where you are. We make wrong turns, or at least we feel like we do. And then sometimes in life, we make wrong turns based on bad decisions, like Saul before he becomes Paul, and we literally have to be confronted by Jesus on the road of our lives. If you're making bad decisions and you feel like you've taken a wrong turn in life, whether it be your relationship or your career or your health or anything, there's some things that you have to do. Number one, you have to acknowledge your part. Accept responsibility. Know that maybe the reason that I am where I am is because of poor decision making or poor planning, or I was just going along based on what I saw rather than based on what was best. You have to be willing to accept responsibility if you're going to go the right direction. Number two, reroute. Exactly, reroute. You can't expect to go in the right direction, in a new direction, by still heading the same direction. Number one, you have to be willing to accept your responsibility. And then number two, reroute. Get back on track. Make the right turn. Last thing you have to do is you have to be willing, after you've already gone through accepting your responsibility and rerouting, you have to be willing to pay the price. Because poor decision making and poor planning always comes at a cost, and you have to be willing to pay that cost to get your life back on track. And so many of us want our lives on track, but we don't want to reroute, or we want our lives on track and we don't want to pay the penalty, and we don't want to take responsibility for it. We want to blame everybody else for the tragic turn that our lives took. But you have to be willing to take responsibility, reroute, and pay the price. But what happens as a believer when you feel like you've taken a wrong turn, but you really haven't? Isaiah chapter 30, verse 21 says, "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" This is the way, walk in it. For so many of us, we have been living life, even our spiritual lives, based on what we see around us. We're driving by memory rather than by what we hear from the voice of God. And there are those moments where we've been going through this life and life doesn't meet our perception. It doesn't match what we think it's supposed to look like. And we have this jarring moment where we say, uh-oh, something doesn't look right. This isn't supposed to be where I am. How did I get here? This isn't what my life is supposed to look like, because we feel as though it took a wrong turn, not based on the directions of Scripture, but based on what we see around us. If you could see what God sees, you would understand that your steps are ordered by the Lord, that He is miraculously navigating your life, that if you're following Him obediently, there will be moments where it doesn't look right, but it's a part of God's sovereign plan. And God has a God perspective. He sees every angle, and what looks like a wrong turn to you is right on track with the will of God. God is able, even if you've made poor decisions, or if you're on track and you just can't see that you're on track, God has a way of bringing a beautiful reality out of what we think are wrong turns. We just have to learn to trust Him more. And every road that we take should lead us to the throne of grace, where we find mercies that are new every morning, the power of God flourishing in our life. We find peace, we find comfort, we find joy, we find care, we find all of it at the feet of Jesus. So keep going. If you're on the wrong track because of poor decision making, reroute, own your part, pay the price, get back on track. If you're following obediently and it doesn't look right, trust in your navigator. He'll take you all the way to glory. Anyway, I hope this has been a blessing to you. I'll see you next week. You're always great to see. This is GracePoints. God bless you.